Good morning and thank you for joining us on the midweek edition of TVC Breakfast. I'm Veronica Danik-Boy and I'm not here alone. I have Kemi Olaleye joining me this morning. Kemi, good morning.
Veronica.
It's good to have you join me this morning on the show. Thank you. Well, we have an array of issues we will be looking at this morning from the matter of the PNID, for which Nigeria won the case, the $11 billion case that has been generating reactions. And then we also have the matter of security, where some persons are looking at alternatives towards addressing the insecurity situation in the country. And then we have the case of the sexual offences domestic violence court, Ikeja, that convicted the medical director of Optical Cancer Care Foundation, that's Dr. Olufemi Olaleye, yesterday. And that is where we will begin. Now, Justice Rahman Oshodi of a Lagos Sexual Offences and Domestic Violence Court, Ikeja, has convicted the medical director of Optical Cancer Care Foundation, Dr. Olufemi Olaleye, for defiling his wife's niece, who was 16 years old at the time of the offences. Now, the court held that the prosecution proved the two-count charge of defilement and sexual assault by penetration against the defendant. My colleague, Kemi Olaleye, was at the court and now reports.
Dr. Olaleye had claimed in his defense that his wife, who filed the complaints against him, concocted the allegations driven largely by monetary gains and then tutored her niece to lie against him. But the court said the prosecution's witnesses, which included the defendant's wife, the survivor who had been living with the Olaleyes since 2019, and the medical doctor who examined her, provided damning evidence which were abundant, consistent, and compelling. The judge said the defendant's testimony in court, where he denied the charges, amounts to a lie, an afterthought, and inconsistent with the statement he made at the Anthony Village Police Station on November 29, 2021, in the presence of his former lawyer, Olale Komburuji, and the DPO CSP, Patricia Amadi, containing his confessions to defiling the minor severally due to a sexual addiction he said he was suffering from. In the court's words, the confessions are direct, consistent, unequivocal, and the words of a genuinely remorseful man, who then made an about-turn by denying the offences. In his plea for leniency, the convict's counsel, Adebisi Oridate, said Dr. Olaleye was a first-time offender who rendered services to female cancer patients and the state government. But the judge said he was a dangerous offender who must be removed from society.
It goes a long way. Now, it doesn't mind how highly placed you might be in the society. If you are involved in sexual offenses, there will be a day of reckoning.
This is a judgment that many people did not believe can come to pass because of the high status of the defendant.
In family of four, if you do wrong, Ikeja will be the first person to stand against you. And that's how it should be. Two of his friends were here in this courtroom. They were giving him high five when they walked in. I'm sure those ones, they are also doing this until you get caught.
Like he said, if he had continued with me in 2015, I would have done proper clinical assessment for him, and I would have discovered that he has this sexual disorder, sexual addiction, and would have started therapy for it.
This is justice for every survivor, for every girl child in Nigeria who has been sexually violated, and you're thinking, when will I ever get justice? This justice is for you.
As part of his punishment, Femi Olaleye, who has been held at the Nigerian Correctional Facility in Ikoyi since his arraignment in November 2022, will also have his name listed in the Lagos State Sexual Offences Register. Kemi Olaleye, TVC News, Lagos.
Indeed, as it has been said, justice for every survivor, and we saw how the matter, evolved up until this time. We saw how things went at the beginning. It seemed like one of the respondents mentioned that there wasn't going to be the kind of justice seen to be done yesterday. It was seeming like that wasn't going to be the case at the end of the day because he was a highly placed person. But it is good that we saw, this kind of judgment coming out of the case, and it has been said that he is somewhat a dangerous person who has to be removed from society, even if he's being claimed to be a first-time offender, so to speak. But how did it go yesterday?
Well, the case has ended, at least at this level. And my first observation was it was a rather, it's good to know that, trials of this nature don't take so long as against the norm.
Yeah.
He was arraigned November last year or thereabout, and for our Nigerian setting, this is one of the very few cases where judgment was given in a fairly, what one can say, record time, because a case of this nature, high profile defendant in the caliber of Femi Olaleye, who many had, identified him as walking the corridors of power, associating with officials, senior officials at that of the Lagos State government, having celebrity personalities as his clientele, as, even people who were endorsing his services in the person of Ikeja and others. So it was very interesting to see that. But, the build-up to his arraignment, there had been a lot of outcry. Ikeja, too, was also one of the major celebrities calling him out and asking him to answer to his charges, calling on the government, because at the time there was a suspicion that perhaps the government was trying to shield him. But, of course, you are mindful of all the procedures, that entail before a matter comes to court. Police was understandably involved, and a host of other government agencies. And finally, he had his day in court. He was denied bail. He applied for bail, and then the conditions were given which he couldn't meet, and hence he was in jail at the Ikeja Center all through his trial. And now that he has been found guilty, we hear, though his lawyer wasn't able to give us an interview, he turned our request down, but he said emphatically that Femi Olaleye would definitely be going on to appeal.
Right. It would be interesting to see how things pan out with that. But some conversations came up out of this yesterday, and there were those who were for and against, the wife calling him out for this matter. There were those who had said that, perhaps the wife shouldn't have called him out. She could have just perhaps taken her children, walked away from him, or perhaps he would have involved the family to bring them into the matter to say, this is what your son, illustrious son, is doing. And there was a back and forth. This culture of cover-up, silence, is our family member. We are seeing that that is no longer the case as it is. It is high time we begin to call these persons because of the attendant impact on the victims of such persons.
Absolutely. It was a case of many interesting elements, one of which was the fact that it was the wife that, filed the complaint, and she was also one of the key witnesses, in addition to the girl who was, who he defiled, several times within a space of 18 months. At the least, because it started from 2020 or thereabouts to, March 2020 up until November 2021, before the girl was now forced to come out, and the woman didn't know. She told the court over the time that she didn't know, but the moment she knew, she just couldn't stay silent, because that was how she was brought up, that no matter who was affected, how close the person was, a crime is still a crime, especially a crime of this level. And it was revealed during trial at a time by her that, according to her, between she and her husband, that the husband was even said to have told her, according to her, it's her testimony that I'm saying, that it's even good that the girl, her name are withheld because of her circumstance, it's good that she came, because at the point she came, because the man was quoted as saying that he had a sexual addiction. He acknowledged he had one, and then he said he possibly, under the weight of the addiction, could have even been forced to perpetrate it on his daughter. And he has a daughter, he has a young son as well. So that also must have bared. Must have also reflected on her decision to come out, because every other person was at risk. Every young person was at risk. Every female was at risk. And it also extends the conversations to what happens to him now, because I know that the DSV, the Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency, has started a kind of counseling for sex addicts, for sex offenders who now have their day in court, who have been convicted. So the question is, will he surrender while in jail? Will he submit himself to counseling? Seeing as he has established, even though he denied all of those, he established during, between him and his wife, he established in an undertaking with the police that he was suffering from a sexual addiction, that he wished he had continued his therapy, he wished he had continued spiritual therapy, so to speak, but he didn't. So what happens to him now? No. What about the society of inmates in prison? Could they also be at risk of somebody who has acknowledged that he has a problem? So there might be need to extend the conversation beyond the fact that he has been imprisoned, even though he says, and he is entitled to appeal anyway.
Absolutely.
So since he has said that he wants to go on to appeal through his counsel, there's also that issue of his problem. And
addressing
that problem. And if he does, what if he's finally free? So what happens to the larger society? Yes. Has he treated, is he well? Is he well enough to mingle with regular society? And even if whilst he's there, what happens to the other inmates and even the female officers around him? Absolutely.
These are the critical issues why it is important that matters like this are not kept in the can to say that this person is a family member, this person is a friend, we have to keep them. How about the larger society? Will this person, keep going into the wild and constituting a nuisance to the society? And we are having a long list of victims who are broken at the end of the day. You mentioned his daughter could have been a victim, but of course, thankfully, the wife had to take action, as it were, at the time to address the matter quickly. So another message here for me is that those who understand that they have an addiction should perhaps begin to seek counsel to addressing this matter before it gets out of hand, puts them in trouble, and they find themselves behind bars, as it is, because the society is trying to, win itself off of these, issues, so to speak. There are so many broken people, there are so many issues in the society that we have to deal with. And so if you understand you have a challenge, there are people who are out there that can help you. It's just that in this part of the world, we do not really appreciate counseling, so to speak, because we feel that we can deal with these issues ourselves. Right. Or we seek one help or the other that is not even leading you to the needed solution as it is.
Well, that's the standpoint of the DSVA too, because, not only are the survivors also at risk, and in this case, the survivor was already showing signs of being, being lawless, of being affected by the trauma, the repeated trauma she faced under the defilement. But the convicts themselves are largely victims, or they were once victims where they were younger. So there is also need to explore that and, try and let the doctor open himself up, give himself up to therapy and, in-depth counseling where he could perhaps reveal where he's coming from, perhaps a place of hurt.
So they can get to the root.
So they can address the problem.
Very important.